Hey, dreamers, welcome back to your Dream Coach podcast, the place where we talk about what it really takes to build a life and business that aligns with your dreams. I'm Shayla Wey, and today I am talking about one of the most critical yet overlooked aspects of business success, and that's leadership and culture. So, if you're an entrepreneur, a business owner, or leading a team, you've probably realized something by now. The success of your business isn't just about the product, service, or marketing. It's about the culture you create. And here's what I found is culture is not by accident. It's created, it's shaped and reinforced by leadership, whether it's intentionally or unintentionally. And so today I'm breaking down the leadership code, the key principles that I've learned about how to create a winning culture in any business. And whether you're leading a team, growing a business, or just stepping into your leadership in your own life, this episode is for you. So let's dive in. One of the biggest lessons that I've learned is that leadership is not just about authority, it's about influence. And leadership sets the tone always. And in almost 20 years of building and leading teams in direct sales, I have seen examples of that in my own business. And I've seen examples in companies that, as a business coach, where the team is disengaged, unmotivated, and constantly just leaving. And almost every time, the problem wasn't the job, it was the leadership. And as I was developing leaders in my direct sales business before I pivoted into coaching, I would often work with leaders on reminding them that their business is often a reflection of who they are. And sometimes that was some challenging feedback to give. And even for myself, when my business wasn't where I wanted it to be at certain times, is I knew that my business was a reflection of where I was at as a leader. And what I have found is the energy, attitude, and values of the leader shape the entire business. And so if you want a strong culture, it starts with how you show up every single day. And so if you want a motivated team, you need to be motivated. And if you want a culture of accountability, you need to hold yourself accountable. If you want innovation, you need to embrace new ideas first. And the team follows the leader. And whether that's towards growth or it's towards dysfunction. And I had a coaching call with a client last week about where his vision was going with his organization. And he complained about the team for the first 20 minutes of our session. And I asked a powerful question about what his vision and mission was for himself and for the business. And when I asked that question, you could just see that he internally realized that as a leader, he wasn't showing up in a lot of these bad habits and attitudes and things that were showing up in his business was often a reflection of where he was at. And so having to make that shift with his team and his culture. And so one of the fastest ways to create a winning culture is being crystal clear about what you stand for. Clarity creates culture. And this is probably one of the biggest things that when a business coach, or as a business coach, when a business leader comes to me and is looking for advice is are they clear on what they want? And so I've worked with businesses where the team had no idea what the vision was and what success looked like, or what the company even valued. And the lack of clarity creates confusion, frustration, and disengagement. And so I found that the best leaders clearly define what is their mission, right? Why does this business exist? What's the vision? Right? Where are we going? And then what are the values? What do we actually stand for? And in my coaching sessions, as I see businesses grow, or we're helping businesses get to where they want to go, when a leader can really be clear on that, that really helps with a lot of decision making. It helps the clarity of the growth. And then the team doesn't need to be told because they're feeling it. It's a living and breathing existence in that organization when we have that clarity. And so when people know what they're working towards, they're more engaged, more motivated, and more committed. And if we want to create a team that thrives, we have to build that trust first. And so trust fuels high performance teams. And I used to think leadership was about being the boss, right? And making sure people followed the rules. But what I found is that the best teams don't follow out of obligation. They follow because they trust the leader. I used to always say that, I'm not here to boss you around. I'm here to help you do what you already want to do. right? And being a boss is a title, and being a leader is leading really by example. And trust is built when leaders listen to their teams instead of just giving orders. People feel safe to take risks without fear of punishment, and leaders own their mistakes instead of blaming others. I loved when I made a pivot as a leader to being really vulnerable, because people started to see me more as a human being than just, whatever title at that time I was in my business. And that's valuable. And sometimes people think as a leader, they have to show up and everything has to be perfect. But at the end of the day, when we can be really vulnerable, there is a lot more trust that people feel. And when people trust their leader, they give their best effort, not because they have to, but because they want to. And what I've found that kills culture the fastest is a lack of appreciation. And recognition drives engagement. And I've seen employees give their all to a company only to feel unseen, unrecognized, and undervalued. And when that happens, people check out. The best leaders actively recognize and celebrate their team's wins, both big and small. And that's just a good reminder for ourselves too. I was on a call earlier today for an organization that I'm a part of called the Front Row Moms. And I meet with a group of the Front Row Moms every couple weeks. And one of the ladies in our pod, we call it, was talking about some of the goals she's been achieving. And it's just been really busy. And, I asked her, what have you done lately to celebrate your wins? And not only is that important for ourselves as leaders to celebrate growth and success that we are building for ourselves, but also to bring that into the team. Because Tony Robbins has a great quote that talks about the ultimate failure is success without fulfillment. And so as leaders, as business owners, as we're growing, if we don't take time to stop and recognize our teams and even just give ourselves space to say, great job, and let our team know that I see the effort you put in, that really can go a really long way. And public recognition boosts morale. It creates a positive feedback loop. And a culture of appreciation leads to higher retention, better performance, and a more motivated team. And so if you want to go all in, make them feel seen. And what people hate is that when leaders say one thing but do the other. So setting the standard and not just talking about it, having that high level of integrity. I once worked with a business owner who constantly talked about teamwork, but behind the scenes, he blamed the team when things weren't going great, refused to collaborate, and just ignored feedback. And guess what happened? The culture crumbled because no one trusts a leader who doesn't walk the walk. And the best cultures aren't built on words, they're built on action, right? We know that action always speaks louder than words. We need to walk the walk as a leader, because if you want a culture of respect, be the most respectful person in the room. If you want a culture of learning, show that you're willing to learn. And if you want accountability, hold yourself accountable first. People follow what they see, not what they hear. And as a parent, I'm really grateful that I learned that lesson in my business years ago, because it's the same thing as a parent, that our kids, as well as being a business leader, right? They follow what they see, not just what they hear. And it's a great reflection exercise when we think about our kids being a reflection of who we are, or our teams, our business being a reflection of who we are as a leader. And I used to think that great leaders had to control everything. But what I found is that great leaders empower, not micromanage. And empowerment, is way more influential than micromanagement. And when leaders micromanage, and I cringe when I hear this, because it is just this extra sense of control. And so when leaders are in a place where they are micromanaging, they end up creating a culture of fear instead of trust. They're creating they crush that creativity and ownership. They burn themselves out trying to do everything. But when leaders empower their team, people feel ownership over their work. Innovation and problem solving start to happen naturally, and the business grows beyond just one person's efforts. And so if you want a winning culture, give people autonomy and let them take ownership, because culture is built in those hard moments. It's easy to have a great culture when things are going well, but what happens when things go wrong? And I've seen companies crack under pressure because their leadership only cared about culture when things were good. But what I found is that the real test of leadership happens in the hardest moments. So do you blame others, or do you take responsibility? Do you panic, or do you lead with calm confidence? Do you abandon your values, or do you stick to them even when it's hard? A strong culture is built when leaders stay true to their values no matter what. And so I've learned a lot about what it takes to create a winning culture in any business. Is leadership sets the tone always. Clarity creates culture. Trust fuels high performance teams. Recognition drives engagement. Set the standard. Don't just talk about it. And empowerment over micromanagement. And culture is built in the hard moments. And so here's my challenge for you. What's one thing that you can do this week to intentionally shape the culture of your business, your team, or your community? You can DM me on Instagram at Shayla Wey Coaching and let me know what resonated most with you. And if you found this episode of value to you, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs this message today. Keep dreaming, but more importantly, keep leading. Until next time.